Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm a father to 6 children, a husband to a wonderful wife, who happens to be a spectacular mother. I am a mechanic by trade, and I like to think of myself as a bit of an artist and a writer. I'd like to share a story with you about a character that I had made and played in a D&D game, a character that I would like to entertain the thought of using in future stories. And then, without any further ado, how Zeff found Daggerford. The day I happened upon the small town of Daggerford, I saw 2 little boys play fighting with sticks, pretending they were swords, and they themselves were brave heroes at odds. These imaginative heroes held this duel on the road just outside this town at a point where the path is lowest, between the hill that I just crested and the final hill. Before reaching the entrance to the community, these sons called home. The kids were just barely outside line of sight from any who may be about their daily business within the city walls. The children's battle cries and the sound of sticks banging upon each other were carried by the cool breeze on my face, and as I watched them at play while making my way down the path, the boys suddenly swarmed by 5 kobolds. The smaller boy was immediately struck on the back of his head by an axe handle. As the older boy screamed, whether in terror or rage, I could not tell. At the sight of these attacking monsters, as I ran to help fend off the kobolds, I gripped my walking stick with all my might. I could see the larger kid's face as he swung his stick back and forth, holding 4 of the reptilian humanoids at bay, while the 5th one was dragging the smaller kid by the wrist with one hand, and the other still held his axe. None of the kobolds heard my rushed approach over the kid's furious screams of, "No, you cannot take Micah. I won't let you." The one that was dragging the boy named Micah never saw me, not even when I landed the blow that felled him. The loud crack of my walking stick striking the back of his reptilian head caught the others by surprise, and they fled in panic, disappearing back into the woods that they came from. The furious boy tried to take pursuit after them, but I managed to get a hold of his shoulder. He kept fighting to get free as he continued on his rant about never taking Micah and swinging his stick in the direction that they had fled in. After several moments of his struggling to chase down the attempted kidnappers, he finally dropped to his knees and began to sob. I told him to stay put while I checked on the other boy. He seemed to be exhausted and half gasping for air when he finally shook his head in agreement. I checked on both the kobold, who had a broken neck, as it seemed by the blow landed right where the spine meets the skull, and the boy Micah, who was knocked out but otherwise unharmed. Now both of these children were between the ages of 5 and 10. Both had a great deal of growing yet ahead. With one knocked out and the other 2 exhausted to stand, I decided to carry them both, one on each shoulder. As I continued on the path into Daggerford, the first local to see me turned out to be the boy's aunt, a kind-hearted young woman named Kimberlyn, who was picking berries to sell just on the other side of the hill. She was relieved that the boys would be all right and led me to their home to lay them to rest. I spent that day looking after the boys and getting to know Kimberlyn. That evening I met the boy's father, a one-legged shepherd named Mike. Upon hearing of how I saved his sons, he offered me a magical longsword as his personal thank you. I refused to accept that I didn't require such a gift. I did eventually take the sword, but I told him that I was only keeping it safe till one of his family should ever have need of it. And I did end up giving that older boy that sword a few years later. I ended up desiring my own home in this small town of Daggerford, and gained employment as well as semi-permanent lodging within the Pickled Pig Inn. I cooked great meals at fair cost to those who were on the road. Now, with this story, I gave my introduction to this character and why he was in that town and where he was. Most people's characters were about how they were going and starting their adventure. His was starting at the end. He had already been a traveling chef. He was worshiping a god of travel, so he was always traveling. He's always going, and he was helping anybody on their roads. He'd feed. He'd be the designated spoon, as it were. And this was how he met the adventuring party, and he wound up going with them. He filled in as a cleric and their healer, and he did everything he could to feed everybody. Every time we killed a new monster, he would find a way to incorporate it into some sort of dish. And this character, he didn't identify as a cleric, he identified as a chef. And that is a character that I intend to use in passing here and there through many other stories. I hope you enjoyed the idea of Zeff the chef. If so, let me know. If not, well, let me know. I plan on sharing more. Thank you. Bye.